Thank you, Tim and Alan, for their questions. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Jim Hagemann Snabe. How do you say it? Snabe. Snabe. I'm going to ask him why 3 names, but okay. Who was appointed co-CEO alongside Bill McDermott in February 2010. Jim also leads the Products and Solutions organization responsible for product and solution development. He joined SAP in 1990 and has been a member of the executive board since July 2008. Here he is, Jim Hagemann Snabe.
Well, thank you very much. I must say I was inspired by the opening this morning. You know, as a CEO, it's always hard to figure out how do you explain a strategy to employees and customers in a way where they will remember it. And I felt this story about the brain and how it works. That's the in-memory computing part of the strategy. And I'm sure this on-demand part of our strategy is the hooker story. And I'm still seeing if we can maybe, for the on-device, use the Pamela Anderson part. And then I'm sure there will be no doubts about the strategy of SAP. We are, as you know, in a transformational phase of SAP since February. I've had the pleasure of being the co-CEO together with Bill McDermott. Now, this little co is a cause for many questions, I can assure you. On the home front with my wife, I try to tell her that that means it's a half-time job, and I'm still working on it. And the official explanation is that we are so ambitious in SAP that we actually need 2 co-CEOs to make it happen. Now, when you do a change like that, a door of opportunity opens. And there is, in particular, an opportunity as new co-CEOs to try and articulate the strategy and be more clear about where we want to be, and also be more focused and fast in trying to get there. So the first thing we did in February was to try and take a step back, actually, and say, you know, what is this SAP? Why do we have SAP? What is our purpose? And I truly believe that in order to inspire people inside of SAP and outside of SAP, you need really to understand why are you here. Now, the idea that we are here to sell software is probably not the most intriguing message that you can have. And so we took a good look at what's going on in the world. And I think it's fair to say that in this world, there is, in fact, a challenging combination of many, many people, in particular in Asia, who have bigger expectations to life and a value of their life, and therefore a huge demand on resources, while on the other side, we actually have a very limited resource situation on most resources except for CO2. So when we looked at this, we took a step back and said, what is the core of SAP? How did we invent SAP? What was the first problems that we tackled? And you look back and see that SAP, in fact, is the inventor of this very strange acronym ERP, which I never really liked, but Enterprise Resource Planning is about how do you plan resources for the enterprise. And so when you looked at that bigger challenge, you said, why wouldn't there be a role for SAP to help companies and governments to optimize the use of resources? Resources that are more and more scarce. No? And if you go beyond the traditional resources which we've been managing, which is basically goods, you know, bills and materials and procurement along a value chain, and the money associated with that in various currencies, what if we could define resources in a more broad perspective? What if we could define resources also being the scarce resources, water, electricity, energy, or the ones that are too much of CO2. And so I actually believe that if you look at our history, 38 years in the industry, we have a big impact in this world. We assess that 65% of world transactions run somehow through an SAP system, and we felt that it would be an inspiring purpose to not just sell software, but to help the world run better. our commitment was always around how do you make companies run better? And we don't want to go away from that. So the conversation around the value engineering and how do we articulate value in what we do and how companies can get more value out of applying technology is a very important one. We basically said there is a bigger level as well. It's whole value chains that need to be optimized so that you have the scarce resources managed in the most optimal way. And we went to the micro level as well and says there's a people agenda as well. There is an opportunity to make people better by giving them access to information anywhere they are, and with that, try and optimize not just business, but also interaction between people. And so we looked at that in the lights of new technologies, and I already mentioned them, and I'm sure you will remember them forever, the brain, right, the in-memory computing, which is a significant different way of looking at how you store data and how you retrieve data and how you analyze data, which gives you tremendous speed in which you can analyze very, very large volumes of data. Why is this important? Because the amount of data available in this world will double every 18 months. So if we don't find fast ways to analyze them, we will soon run out of the opportunity to even analyze what's going on. We felt that the whole mobility, which is the opportunity really to reach people everywhere with the devices that they bring and carry with them. There's more than 2.6 billion people in business with mobile devices today. How do we reach out to all these people so they can do their job better? And finally, of course, the on-demand is a way of deploying software where it's instant value. It's not that companies want desperately to consume software over the internet. That in itself has a lot of challenges around security and so on. It's really the notion of how do I get instant value. And we believe that there is an opportunity to make this equation happen better and faster. Optimize entire value chains so that you can manage these scarce resources and still provide prosperity for people everywhere. Reach out to people and make them interact in a more productive way using some of the most modern devices, and with the in-memory computing, analyze and become much more agile in ways to understand what's going on and change your strategy and your execution. So that's where the journey started in February. And since then, it has been a very interesting journey, I must say. I have been extremely positively surprised by the amount of positive feedback we've gotten from our customers and from the employees. And I would like today to talk about where we are on this journey. What are the choices that we made? Because strategy is really about choice. And what is the execution that we have been doing so far? And what can you expect of us in the coming months and years to really execute rapidly on this new strategy? So if you look at it, before you start articulating a strategy, it's also about understanding what is in fact going on in the world and how is technology evolving. And what we saw was that we have been solving some of the most complex problems in this world, and many people argue SAP is too complicated. And of course we could choose not to solve complex problems, but I actually think that's one of the assets that we have. We know how to solve some of the most complex business problems in this world. Like how do you run a very agile supply chain where mission criticality of the speed of the supply chain is very important? Or how do you run banks with 400 million accounts in China and make sure that you can do that in mobile scenarios of the future? And these are not simple problems to solve. And yet we have been able to solve them for 25 distinct different industries. And we looked at the map and say, wow, we need to add something because there's something happening that is not the traditional approach of SAP. And if you look at the upper part of this picture here, this is this new world of people collaborating and ecosystem innovation, which I think took most people by surprise. If you look at Apple and how they have not only managed to redefine the computer and the device, they've actually redefined a bunch of industries, not to mention the music industry, and now the movie industry is being radically transformed because of the technology and the ease of consumption that they have managed to get to their customers, the consumers. And if you look at the innovation that's happening in that part of the world, You know, it's interesting to see how an app store, which basically just distributes applications to users, have been able to create more than 200,000 apps in a very, very short period of time. There's no way that Apple, even with a doubling of the amount of resources they have in R&D, could ever have produced 200,000 apps in that period of time. And you have nowadays more than 3 billion downloads of these apps, a distribution which is viral, and you could never have achieved with a traditional sales approach. So there is something new happening where people have become more powerful. The viral adoption and the viral interaction between people on topics like Facebook and Twitter has become a way of being. I was at the dinner table with my family the other day, and my daughter got you know these little annoying beeps you get on your iPhone when there's someone on Facebook who sent you something? And she gets that in the middle of the dinner, and she starts replying. And I said, Katrina, could you please wait with that? We're having dinner. And she keeps going, so I put on my other face and say, could you please stop that? And she looks angry at me and said, Daddy, didn't you answer Facebook when you were my age? And so there is a different generation, and the assumption is I'm always on, I'm always there, and you better understand that. So what we needed to do is to understand that it's great to have solved some of the most complex problems in this world, and these engines need to be robust and reliable and scalable and all that thing. And at the same time, we need to be simple, viral, user-friendly. I put a target to the team in development and said, what if we could reach 1 billion people by 2015? Now, don't forget we have today 38 million users of SAP in the world. And that took us 38 years. So if you do the math in a linear projection, 1 billion is a lot. And by 2015, it needs to be a pretty exponential curve. So the developers were all excited and said, wow, man, 1 billion people, that would be so cool. You know, we would have that impact in this world. And then they started reflecting, but then you need it on the mobile device. You're absolutely right. But then you need it really easy to use, you know. You do the math, how many people can we run through the training centers in SAP in a year? 1 billion won't make it, right? So, and that's exactly right. So that's the mindset thinking, change of mindset we're trying to do in SAP to say, how do we continuously solve very complex problems, even more complex ones as the boundaries between industries starts to blur, and at the same time, add simplicity, add choice, add opportunity, add viral adoption on the user front. And with that, create an opportunity which goes far beyond where we are today.